In this episode of the Exploring Information Security podcast, what is Tempest?
Computers now have primary control of critical functions.
Houston, recommend vector transfer.
Your go for APU shutdown on time.
Roger, go for deploy.
Nice to be in orbit.
Welcome to the Exploring Information Security podcast, where you learn, explore, and grow your security mindset. I am your host, Timothy D. Black, and in this episode, we will be exploring Tempest. With me to do that is Tim Fowler, the founder of Ethos Labs, and really the creator of Tempest. Show notes can be found at exploresec.com/EIS. Feedback for the show can be sent to timothy.dblock@exploresec.com. You can also hit me up on LinkedIn. Reach out or connect, or I don't know what I'm thinking. If you try to connect with me, please put a note in. Let me know that you're a listener of the podcast, and I'd be happy to connect. You can also rate the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. If it's not on your favorite podcast platform, let me know. So welcome back to the new year. We're kicking it off with Tim Fowler and Tempest. Another hacking in space. We did one about a year ago, which people seem to be interested in. So I'm excited to have him back. He is sponsoring, Ethos Labs is sponsoring this podcast, which is great. I like having sponsors because I get paid for my work. And so Tim has this episode, and then we're planning on doing a couple more in this year. So I'm really excited to kick this off. He's definitely got some training opportunities in 2025. And if you listen to the podcast, it sounds like a really, really good time. He talks about kind of his first go with Tempest and doing it in training. And as we kind of talked about last year's episode, space security is kind of where it's going to be that new field in the next 10 years that a lot of people are going to want to get into. So if you want to get into it now. If you want to go, if you're kind of tired of all the software-defined networking and all the other stuff that's been going on, and really enjoyed the older times, if you're nostalgic for back when we had to figure things out, didn't have a lot of documentation, had to kind of figure stuff out on our own, read manuals, and really dig into topics, space security is where it's at, because that's kind of where it's at in kind of its maturity, is that it's very early on, so there's not a lot of documentation. People have to kind of figure stuff out. You really have to dig in and understand the technology. So if you want to take it back, would definitely think about doing that. So he's got a couple training events this year, February 4th and 5th, Wild West Hacking Fest Denver. I have been to a Wild West Hacking Fest. They're a really great conference. If you remember DerbyCon, it's very similar to that. ShowMeCon as well, and I'll give a plug for ShowMeCon because that's coming up later this year, and I plan to be there. Tim will be there. Tim and I always reconnect at ShowMeCon. So if you want to come talk to us, definitely check out ShowMeCon. Early bird specials are still on in early part of 2025. Also, if you're a speaker, would definitely check out speaking at the conference by submitting your call for paper presentation. They take care of the speakers too. So travel, hotel, food, drinks, all covered. You really don't have to spend a dime unless you want to. So it's a really great conference. Really excited for it. March, there's the Anti-Siphon Summit, which he will be presenting there. And then, of course, he'll also be at ShowMeCon. So I will be at ShowMeCon early, too, because I'm going to take the family. We're going to go up to St. Louis, and I'm going to be there for training. It's the weekend before. So ShowMeCon's usually on like a Monday through Wednesday, so you can see if your company will pay for it. But would definitely recommend it. You can also check out Hack SpaceCon, and then etholabs.space. Is the Ethos Labs company website. So definitely bookmark that, check it out. And then, of course, hit up Tim on LinkedIn. So as I mentioned, really great conversation with Tim, as always. Not really much. I don't really want to spoil too much, and really we're kind of going long. So I guess let's just go ahead and get into it. What's Tempest?
Is
Because I've not done any research. I'm like you. I don't know anything about this. We're starting raw. This is like the raw episode.
I don't know when this is going to go live, but we just got through No Effort November. So if you're not familiar with that concept, it's relatively new, I believe, but a bunch of YouTubers kind of participated in it, where it's just they dial things back, they simplify things. A lot more kind of just raw, unedited content, which is kind of a cool concept. So we're at the end of the year. So this is just our continuation of No Effort November. I don't know when this is going to go live, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, so Tempest is effectively what it is. It is a 1U educational CubeSat that I've been developing really for about the last 18 months. It debuted at Wild West Hacking Fest in Deadwood this past October, and it's a very special kind of project because when I started getting into the space domain and really looking at space cybersecurity, I wanted to go hands-on with something, and I was like, I want to have something that I can break or that I can hack or that I could build. And all of the above at the same time. And so I started looking at all of these options that are out there, and there's a plethora of options that are available from all kinds of price ranges and stuff, and not a single one of them even mentions security. And I'm like, this is kind of a problem. Like, this is how people are getting introduced to space. And if you're not familiar with what a CubeSat is, let's back it up just a little bit, give a little bit of kind of background. So CubeSats are a type of a classification of satellites. It's typically defined by the size of the satellite, the shape. If you're familiar with like rack units, in server racks and stuff like that, a 1U, a 2U, a 4U. The same thing applies with CubeSats, where a 1U CubeSat is 10 by 10 by 10 centimeters cubed, weighing approximately 1.33 to 2 kilograms. So very lightweight, very, very small. Will fit in your hand. And you can have a 1U, a 2U, 3U, and multiples of that up to 12. I think there may have been a couple of 24Us, but once you're getting into that size, you're probably better off going to a different form factor or something. But anyway, so what we're talking about here is a 1U. This is kind of the standard unit that you would see. There are some half U's and various things like that, but you can go and buy these 1U CubeSat kits from all over the globe. And they're fantastic. They all have these, really awesome capabilities, ground stations and stuff like that. But not a single one of them touches on security, because it's like, hey, space, satellites. That's what we're here to teach you. And the problem is that we haven't done space very well. We haven't done satellites very well from a historical perspective in terms of security. And so when I started on this journey early last year, this was kind of not the end goal, but this was one of the kind of milestone objectives that we wanted to do. And so spent a bunch of time developing this custom built hardware, 1U CubeSat that we call Tempest. And like all things in aerospace, Tempest is actually an acronym. And it's essentially, it's an irrelevant acronym, but it's Tim's endeavor into manically producing educational technologies or educational space technologies. So Tempest,
love the name. The T is Tim. Is that what I heard?
Yeah. It's basically it is a manifestation of myself and things, but it's designed from the ground up for the purposes of accomplishing some of the same things that the CubeSats and various kits that are available out there do, but overlay the fundamental concepts of cybersecurity. It is as far as I know, the only CubeSat that you could get your hands on that is intentionally vulnerable. Now, I'm not going to say there's not some unintentional vulnerabilities in there because I wrote the code, right. So you can take that for what it's worth. But it is designed to be hacked, and it's also designed in a way to be modular. So the first kind of iteration of the flight software that debuted back in October, I've actually been working on a complete rewrite of that to be able to scale it out, modify it, so that we can go through these very scenario-based examples of like how to do security right in the context of a space system, whether it's on the ground station side or the ground side, or if it's the space segment side or the link in between those, and looking at all aspects. I developed Tempest really initially as a teaching aid for my class that I also teach around space cybersecurity, and so, but it's kind of morphing into its own entity, its own thing that hopefully over the next couple of months, I'm actually going to be in a position where you maybe actually go and be able to buy the hardware. Right now, you can't unless you take one of my classes that offers it, and it's a manufacturing scale issue right now.
So are you giving away these CubeSats as part of your training, or
giving away, yes, for money. And so essentially what happens for like the Wild West Hacking Fest events that I'm doing predominantly with the hardware is actually an additional fee, or it's baked into the cost of training. Right. But it's a higher price than what you would pay for another class. But yeah, they get to take it home. They get access to everything, as well as, as we do updates and modifications and stuff, they would have the ability to do that. Whereas here again, most updates are going to be purely software because the hardware is pretty well set in stone, at least for this particular version. There will be, at a minimum, if I can't get the manufacturing processes down to a manageable level of effort, at a minimum, once version 2 is ready and out, I will release all of the files, source code and design files, PCBs, all of that stuff, open source for version 1. So they'll kind of be like a kind of a TikTok cadence. As the new version comes out, we'll release the old stuff so that people could have the ability to go and order their own. It's not super cost effective to do it because most of your PCB manufacturers are going to require sets of 5 or something like that, but it could be done on the cheap. So that's kind of one of the plans for that. But yeah, so this is what right now the only way to guarantee it, to get access to, is to take one of my hardware edition classes. I hope in 2025 to actually have a couple of just standalone hardware classes where people can go and play around with it, learn some stuff, focusing a lot on the radio sides, the link segment sides and stuff, and then just the general cybersecurity aspects of it. Because the thing that's kind of unique about this is that it is essentially, and I talk about this in my classes and stuff, it's a flying computer, although these don't fly. Let's just be clear about that. I mean, if you chunk them across the room, they'll fly.
I was going to say, you're going to learn to chunk them.
And until that impact happens, the data is going to look amazing and stuff, but they're not designed to actually fly. Yes. Although with
they're meant for space, right? They're meant to be launched into space.
Well, okay, so this particular design is not. It is designed to sit on your desk.
Okay, all right.
However, it would only take minor modifications to actually be space worthy. And so we talk about that in the class and stuff, because honestly, the cost to have a space viable satellite, even on the low end, you're talking a 5 to 10x cost. In some cases, a 100x cost for various things like that, and that's just not achievable for most people. So the idea is try to get it as low cost as possible, and it's still fairly expensive. Like for the entire hardware kit, it's essentially $600 for all the custom ground station, all the hardware, software defined radios to be able to play, like do various things with it. You get a whole hardware kit in conjunction with just the CubeSat.
And this is already put together, right? Like no one's putting it together. No one has to assemble it.
So no. So this is where the beauty of it. So originally, I was doing all the assembly, and they were getting essentially turnkey kits. And the general feedback that I got from that was, "Man, we'd really like to put this together ourselves."
Okay.
And so starting in February, all of the kits will be partially pre-assembled. And it actually works out pretty well because one, you're going to be responsible for, stacking and screwing everything together. There's no soldering or anything like that. It's a very almost, it's like Legos, fragile Legos, if you will. But it's a fairly straightforward process, but it gives you the ability to kind of go hands-on in a slightly different way to, like, we can actually look at the individual components and stuff like that. Because it's one thing to have something and then we're going to take it apart. But it's a lot different to be like, hey, let's actually just start from the miscellaneous pieces, go through what they are, why they're here, some of the decisions that we made with it, and put it back together and assemble it. And now you've got a fully functioning CubeSat that you can do the classes with, as well as you can do potentially other stuff. It's using a Raspberry Pi Zero as the flight computer, which gives you a lot of flexibility in that. Like, if you want to go and customize, write new software, make it do different things, you can absolutely do that.
That's awesome, man. How have the classes gone so far? Like, just in general?
The classes have been fantastic. I have gotten both highly positive feedback and highly constructive feedback. And some people would construe that as, oh, you got some negative feedback. I really haven't. It's just truly constructive feedback. And it's been all, like, it truly has been awesome. We're actually sometime in Q1 next year going to do a little bit of rebranding of the primary course, right, which right now is called Introduction to Cybersecurity and Space Systems. We're actually going to be changing that to Foundations of Space Cybersecurity. And there's a couple of reasons for that. And this was direct feedback from one of the students. Actually, I've had the pleasure of teaching multiple defense contractors, multiple DoD, military, Space Force, Air Force, a whole lot of other. And this was one of our defense contractor partners. They provided some just incredible feedback. They're like, the title kind of makes it seem like it might be just noobish. And it's like, if you don't know anything, but it's like, even as seasoned veterans, there's some really great content in here, and it's very more broad spectrum than just intro, even though it is an intro class. And so they're like, you should really call this like foundational or foundations. And I was like, I read that and I shot that around with other people, and we were all like, they're right. They're 100% right. And so, and I did other good feedback, but overall it has been, we've had great attendance, great plethora of people. Employees from NASA, from JAXA, the ESA, Thales Alenia, obviously Space Force, Air Force, various defense contractors have got to shop this around with a bunch of different people, and overall the feedback has been good, and it makes me really excited because we've got a second class coming middle of 2025, which is going to be so this first class is really geared from an attacker's perspective, because that's my strong suit. And the second class is from a defensive perspective. We know what the attackers can do. How do we stop it? And I'm really excited about that. I'm not going to rush that one. I'm hoping it'll debut in April of this year or 2025, but it could be a little bit later because it's going to be a slightly different in the approach, the style in which the class is going to be taught. It's not going to be death by PowerPoint. It's going to be very lab heavy, very almost like continuous tabletop exercises for the course of the duration of the course, and all aspects of what I'm teaching, from the intro course to the hardware to the defensive course, all works together into one cohesive package. So you could go anywhere from 2 days, 3 days, or 5 days worth of training.
Have you done in these courses? 'Cause if everybody gets a Tempest, can't you do like some sort of in-class like CTF, where it's like you're trying to defend your Tempest but also trying to hack other people's Tempest?
Yeah, you could. You absolutely could. They're not really geared towards that right now, and it's a lot of it's from a logistical perspective, and also just somewhat kind of physics and legal regulations. So Tempest right now is only legally operatable in the United States or Region 2 due to FCC. So we're using the ISM bands. I've got a version that's for the European Union that I'm getting ready to ship out to have some people test because they just use different frequencies and various things like that. And so one of the kind of factors that I have with the hardware version of the class is I limit it to 20 people because I want to make sure we're being good stewards of the radio frequency spectrum that we're operating in and not causing conflicts. To that point, one of the funniest things that's ever happened in my professional career took place in October when we started doing these, pulling the satellites out. When you there's a mechanism on the satellite. It's called an RBF pin, or remove before flight, and it electrically isolates the essentially the battery circuit from the rest of the electrical components, all the microcontrollers and stuff like that. This is a safety requirement that you'd have to have for launch. It would be a little more stringent in an actual launch application. But when you pull that pin out, it electrically connects the entire satellite bus to the power circuits, specifically the battery and the solar panels. Well, about 2 seconds after power up, there is a buzzer on Tempest that we use for a couple of different things, mostly as an indicator that things are working and stuff. It actually beeps out in Morse code, Tempest. And so if you pull all these, if you've got 20 people in a classroom, I had them pull the pins one at a time, because some of my colleagues were teaching a class on the other side of a partition wall, and I was like, let's just give them a chorus of Morse code, I called it a symphony, but it was more a cacophony. So it was just once one started, they would just until it went all the way through the room. And so it gets to the end of that, and the noise settles down, and all of a sudden you hear beep, 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 beep. Well, what that was it was indicating that the satellites were processing commands. And I'm like, did somebody jump ahead in the labs? Did somebody what, and everybody's hands off keyboards, and it's getting louder and more frequent. And it's just all through the room. And then it started to realize what was actually taking place is that all of these satellites were in a default state by design. However, what I did not account for is that the primary radio in these devices are actually using a LoRa-based radio for long range. It's an IoT wireless protocol. And we were at a security conference where things like Meshtastic, if you're not familiar with that, it's a peer-to-peer network or radio-based communication system that uses LoRa, and it defaults on 915 megahertz, which is where these radios were configured. One or more of the satellites picked up a message over the airwaves from Meshtastic and goes, "Oh, I got something. Let me try to process this." Whatever it was, it didn't understand how to process the message. So it replied over the air, unknown command, which then all of the other satellites in that room received as a command, unknown command. And they're like, well, let me try to process this unknown command. Well, I don't know what that is. So they then replied, unknown command. And we essentially created a broadcast storm right there in the classroom. And completely hands off, as one of the students oh God, they're sentient. And I'm like, and then another one's they're talking to each other. And that's exactly what they were doing. They were actually talking to each other through this. And it was the definition of a broadcast storm, because within LoRa and stuff, you can have these various channels and various node addresses, and the default node address or to broadcast is 255, which if you don't go and set a node address, it goes to broadcast. And so that means anybody on that channel or with that configuration will receive the message. And so that's exactly what happened. And I wish I had the wherewithal to get a video of it while it was happening. But considering this was the first time using this hardware, the first time anybody outside of myself had touched it, I was kind of panicking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is going on here? And then as the realization kind of settled in, it's like, oh, this is funny. And then we just ran out of time to recreate it at the end of class. But that's okay. Once I finish this next batch of CubeSats, I'm gonna do the same thing. Because that's just one of the things that's unique about this satellite design. Is that they are actually designed to be able to communicate with each other because they have dual radios. And so you could either go into this, use both radios for a dual half duplex kind of, or simulated full duplex kind of thing. It would never be quite full duplex, or you could have like half duplex communications between your ground station and the satellite, and then half duplex communication from your satellite to another satellite. That was a design feature. That was like an intended purpose of this, that you could essentially, in theory, relay messages from satellite to satellite to satellite within the classroom. I just didn't account for broadcast and the fact that we were close enough to the actual conference that we could potentially pick up some traffic. And we did.
To me, that's a lesson. Like that's what you want to go to a course for. It's like, and now we have a broadcast storm. Let me tell you about how a broadcast storm works and how to.
Yeah, it was just like I was like, this is like I couldn't make this stuff up. It's like now, like I want to build it into like I want to exploit that experience. Is like, hey, let's show you what this looks like, and then it's like, how do we come off of this? Now, what is the like real world implications? Not a whole lot. It's just kind of a cool example. It's like, how many times can you see or actually hear a broadcast storm taking place? Because yeah, sure, you can look, connect in your tap or span port and pull up a Wireshark and look at a PCAP and see all this other stuff going. But outside of that, like it's this kind of thing that we just know exists, but we've never actually experienced it in something that's tangible. And so it was pretty cool. And like, but in the moment I was like, well, I won't be teaching this class again until I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. And then it's like, yeah, it makes perfect sense. And
now people are requesting not to be in the room next to you when you're teaching the satellite.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it was just like, well, that was a little spiteful on my part. Just as like, because I love my colleagues and stuff, and it's just like, you know what, let's just. And it turns out that partition wall was really good at sound deadeaning.
Oh, really?
They didn't hear it. They didn't hear anything until we opened the door between them and stuff. But it was like it was just a really cool, kind of lesson. It's just like, this was an unintended consequence of a design choice, and. I still stand by the design choice, and I'm going to again exploit this in the future and stuff. But it's like this is how things go wrong. Even if it was the right choice, things can go wrong if you don't account for all the details. So it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you is did you get help from essentially that's like an exercise in troubleshooting, right? Is what is actually happening and having an understanding of why things are working the way they are. I didn't know if anybody in class was able to like help you kind of figure that out, if you just
yeah. So one of the students in the back of the room, like I was already headed down this path, but I was like, I just hadn't quite reached that exact location yet. And they're back. He's like, I think they're talking to each other. Yeah. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, that's exactly right. They are talking to each other, and I can tell you exactly what they're saying. They're all telling each other, unknown command. But the way I thought about it, like if you want to understand what this moment was like, go watch Finding Nemo with the seagulls. Mine. That's exactly what it was. Over the air, it was just, instead of mine, it was unknown command. And it was basically it wasn't getting exponentially larger because there's timeouts and various things like that, because there's like, it's essentially effective like UDP over the air. Like we're going to send it, and if you don't get it, you don't get it. So it would have like, there's only so much saturation that could have happened. But like if we hadn't have put the RBF pins back in, it would have never stopped until the batteries were dead.
Okay, so that was a solve, is to just put the pins back in, and then. Yep. I mean, yep. I guess you're essentially disconnecting the satellite from its power source, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. The other example I had is yours is better, by the way, with the mine. Is a reply all storm, right? When someone adds an entire company and people are like, stop responding.
I worked at maybe too much information, but I worked at Wells Fargo years ago, and there was an infamous happy birthday. I can't remember the lady's name now. And like it was on Reddit, and it shut down.
The email server.
Yeah, it was
we'll fix
bad.
this.
Yeah, it was so bad. But that's a great example of kind of seeing the outcome of it and how things can grow exponentially. I mean, essentially what we had done, it was also a complete unintended denial of service attack, in that because they were trying to process these unknown commands, like it's a race condition as to whether I could actually send a command to regain actually operational control of the satellites. Now, the easy way to actually do this is we cheat, and all of the satellites were also connected to a local Wi-Fi network. So it was easy for me to go in and SSH in and reconfigure the radio so that all of the different radios were on either different frequencies or different channels. And stuff. So it was great. It was a fantastic learning experience. Like I mean, we all learn more out of failure than success, like naturally. And not that it was a failure, but it was just one of those things. It's like, how did I not prepare for this? It's so obvious. And in some ways I had prepared for it, but it was the frame of mind, my scope of work was defined in such a way that it's like, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, okay, hey, this is how to do it. But it's not understanding, like, is there any unintentional ramifications for that? And going back to like asking about the troubleshooting stuff, my experience as an instructor, as someone who presents and things go wrong all the time, it's like people love the troubleshooting process. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's like they're just like, hey, we want to see you struggle. It's like, or we want to see you squirm and get uncomfortable. But it's one thing to have things go wrong. Like it's going to happen. Like I tempt the demo gods every time I do a presentation with a demo. Like I will not back down from a live demo. Now I do have backups, just videos and stuff like that. But I will at least attempt it. And the reason why is because even if it goes wrong, I probably in a very short amount of time can tell you why it went wrong and what we could possibly do to fix it. And if time allows, I will fix it on the fly. Otherwise, if not, we're just going to talk about it. We're going to watch the video. We're going to move on. For that purpose, because people, like, things just go wrong. Things change. I taught a class almost 10 years ago on wireless hacking in Charlotte. And I updated the VMs 2 nights before the class and everything's going. And it happened to be at the exact time that the Aircrack NG project changed the nomenclature for how they name monitor interfaces. And all of my documentation was wrong. All of the commands were wrong because it's like we're referencing like Mon0 instead of like WLAN _Mon0, whatever they changed it to at the time. And it's just like you gotta be kidding me. Like of all days for this to change and stuff, but it's like you just have to go with the flow and be able to explain, and the students were awesome. They were fantastic. And stuff. It's just like everything that's this entire guide that I gave you, ignore parts of it on every page, and just understand we're going to have to adjust on the fly. But I think that's what, as students, and people that are consuming this stuff, it's awesome to see the topic and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's just nice to see behind the curtains and see like, hey, other people have the same issues I do. Like nobody has all of the answers. And when we're talking about learning through failure, like I've learned more in this process, especially with Tempest, because let me tell you, I don't recommend doing it. Because when I started, I had never designed a PCB. I had never wrote embedded code for a microcontroller other than Arduino. I definitely had never designed a circuit board with a microcontroller on it that had to do all this other stuff. I had never designed power circuits. Really didn't understand a lot. I mean, at a high level, I understood it, but like getting into the details, I didn't understand just so much about various limitations and various things, like figuring out what the trade-offs that are going to be. Like, can I do this or can I do that? Well, if I do this, this is going to have a trickle-down effect. There's just so much to it that I didn't know. And it's to get to this point, we're literally standing on a mountain of failures. And I love that. Like I recently moved a bunch of stuff off of my desk that is like old, like original PCBs and stuff. Like I can't throw these away. Like they're useless. They're not good to anybody, but they're a reminder of like, hey, this is where you started. This is where you're at now. And it's like one of the things that we struggle with in the information security industry as a whole, and in some cases, life is like, we don't celebrate. I celebrate something, but we don't encourage the process of failure. Like when we go to conferences and stuff like that, and people are up on stage and stuff like that, like we're seeing this amazing work. And it's like, wow, it's like, how did they figure all this stuff out? But what we don't see is the 12 to 18 months of effort of bashing their head against the wall, of like trying things and just giving up like 22 times to get to that point. And so it's okay to fail. And this is like when these little issues do come up and stuff, I think not only is it humbling for me as an instructor, as a developer or anything like that, but it's also like, if I might put myself in the student, it's like, okay, like this is normal. Like, it's okay. Like you're never going to always be successful. And so like, while I am super happy and proud of what I've been able to accomplish specifically with Tempest, I am not content or satisfied. Like even before I got to South Dakota with the first batch, I'm like, here's everything I want to change. Here's everything that's wrong with it. This was, I don't know, like this was smart at the time. It's stupid now. It's always going to happen. There's always going to be an evolution and stuff. But it is awesome to be at a place where it's like, yeah, we did this. We were able to accomplish this, and hopefully we're going to be able to do more of it in the coming, specifically in 2025, because we've got some pretty lofty goals about not only continuing to make improvements, especially in the software side of stuff, but I want to be able to get this into the hands of more and more people soon.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that you're moving towards a, almost like a, I don't know if you, what you call it, where it's like a public version that you can buy outside of class. Right. And then, and I imagine the idea is just to allow people to learn on their own, then like do some self-learning.
Well, so yes, but also guided content as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you're not just gonna be like, here you go, Google it and good luck. It's more like, here's kind of the inner workings. And I love the idea too, because Sammy Kamkar talked about this on this podcast, is understanding, and you talked about it right there, is like your circuit board level understanding how a circuit board works. It really is just like electricity doing ones and zeros, right? And that's how you're going to actually learn how to hack it better. But then also like understanding how all that works really does make you like a better hacker if you're going to like hack it and learn.
But even if you're not going to hack it, it's just understanding like the complexities of something. Like it's simplistic and complex at the same time. Like it seems to be like this has this polarization, but it's like there's aspects of it that are like really complex, but then others it's like it's simple, not necessarily elegant, but it's approaching elegance. And so because one of the plans specifically is so in April of this year, 2024, I did a workshop called BIOS at HackSpaceCon. It stands for Bring Your Own Satellite, and I'm actually in the process of writing the second version of that. And it's I say second version, it's literally just an expansion, cleaning up, modifying a couple of things, and then expanding upon that. And the idea is that once Tempest is going to be available for public consumption, not tied to specific training, is to have all of the videos and the modules tied into that BIOS ecosystem, completely free, that you could go and do it, because you don't, in a lot of cases, you don't even necessarily need this hardware. There are going to be things that's like, hey, I modeled this or base this off of X, Y, and Z. If you just want to do this thing, here's all you need. You can go buy this little Raspberry Pi Pico, this little radio module from Adafruit, a couple of jumper boards, and you can simulate this without having it all tied into one ecosystem.
So now you're creating like a whole new ecosystem of like modding your satellite. So everyone's going to show like a different
Hack your satellite.
Yeah,
satellite hacking.
It's going to be like cars, man. It's going to have some
my satellite. Listen, it's got to have RGB.
So loud, I added a muffler to it.
It's got RGB, baby. But I mean, some of that, but it's like to get us to kind of think about the concepts and the various things that are possible. I mean, a lot of it's really going to come fundamentally down to the software side of stuff. Because one of the things that I'm doing, and I'm super, super excited about it, is that I know, I can't say for a fact, but I'm willing to bet money. I have a CubeSat in my possession that is the first one that actually has AI capability built into it at the hardware level.
Oh, you speaking of setting and beings,
yeah.
Make sure its name is Tim and it loves all Tims.
Yeah, no. So that sounds really good. Let's scale it back. Let's tell the truth. Okay, so Raspberry Pi recently released their 12 megapixel AI camera. And it's using an RP2040 to run the neural network, to do the image processing and stuff, but it's all built onto the camera module. That is the exact same mount as the cameras that are on board Tempest now. I just had to do a slight modification in the opening, and I was able to bolt it straight on. Now, if you want to extrapolate this into space, that camera ain't doing nothing from a space observation or Earth observation perspective in the real life. But being able to simulate that we have this low power systems that can run off of batteries that has this finite but present AI capability, such as image detection and stuff like that. One of the things trying to do is actually to get it to detect missile launches.
Oh,
also known as Nerf blaster bullets or whatever like that.
Yeah.
But being able to recognize the form factor and stuff like that to actually be able to detect.
Isn't there a movie about this called like Eagle Eye or so? You're essentially creating Eagle Eye, by the way.
I can neither confirm or deny. No, but it'd be like, so basically we're taking a realistic satellite operation or function, such as the early warning detection system that uses a whole plethora of sensors and various things like that to be able to properly detect a missile launch or something like that. We're scaling this back down to a $70 hardware module, essentially, and being going like, hey, can we just classify this as a potential missile launch? I don't know. I haven't spent a lot of time doing it, but that's where things are headed. And here again, part of this is hardware, part of it's the software. And this is one of the things I love. Like, this is why it's such an amazing platform and why I want more people getting focused on space cybersecurity is it's all of that coming together in perfect harmony. Yeah. You've got some really incredible hardware that's like, I mean, just super, super special. But it's using stuff like CAN bus and, RSA 485 and 422 and like serial protocols. And then, all this stuff that we do with like Arduinos, I squared C, SPI, things that we do as hobbies. Like, it's all, this stuff is flying. It's like, can we extrapolate? Can we take the knowledge that we have, can develop here on Earth and start applying it to making sure we're doing a better job in space? I say yes, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. I even another example I thought of that's probably not, it's not missiles, but is weather, right? You could like use that camera for hurricanes, tornadoes, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I love it. Yeah, I mean, like, because one of the things that I was actually kind of postulating is setting this up a fixed distance away from like a monitor, and then using either something like imagery from the NOAA satellites or anything like that, that we could kind of stream and just have it essentially try to tell us what's going on in that particular environment. Because obviously, we only have so much data, we only have so many pixels and stuff. But even if we can get into like, a 50% confidence ratio, like this is it's Raspberry, these are Raspberry Pis. Okay. If we can do it at a decent level there, we can absolutely scale it up to the next level. And then the next level, from my perspective, while the AI is predominantly geared towards the image processing and classification and stuff like that, I want to move it one step further back into the actual heart of the satellite to being able to do things like anomaly detection, fault recovery, as well as active defense against attacks. That's the next generation.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So what do you want to plug?
I don't know.
Is that the hardest question? You're able to go into all the details.
So,
all right, what training? You have training coming up, right?
So I'm done for the year. At least publicly, I've got a couple.
Well, and we're recording in 2024, so we'll talk about release dates, but for 2025,
So for 2024, we're done. 2025, I still have a couple of seats opened at Wild West Hacking Fest Denver, in the first week of February. I think it's going to be like February 8th and 9th for the training, and then the conference is the 10th. I don't know. I have to double check. Sorry. It's the 4th and the 5th of February. Then I'm going to have a virtual class in March. I'm not quite sure the dates there. I can get those to you and we can publish those as part of a anti-siphon summit. If you're not familiar with anti-siphon training, it's a division of Black Hills Information Security. I'm an instructor with them. And so do that. And then, I was really hoping to be at ShowMeCon teaching, but that didn't work out. So you'll have to talk to Dave about that one. But I will be at ShowMeCon, and I will be bringing stuff to play with for anybody that wants to come check it out.
Oh, I love that. We're going to have to talk about some sort of collab between ExploreSec and the Tempest, man.
It's gonna be fun. And then don't quite know the entire 2025 schedule yet as far as training. I'm hoping to get I will be going to Hackspace Con again this year. I'm hoping to be able to teach the class, although that will be a non-hardware class. That'll be just my regular class, and it's just because of the logistics of traveling with that much hardware and lithium batteries and everything else. Like I've had to learn more about non-technical stuff of just like trying to make all this stuff happen.
Well, you already mentioned laws at FCC, that's all.
And various things like that, making sure that everything's in a form factor that people can take them home.
Yeah.
And so like for the purposes of the class, we don't actually ever put the batteries in the system. They're outside of the system. You can power it over USB, which makes it a little bit easier. And that way they can actually fly home with them, either in their carry-on or in their checked baggage. Like just going through those considerations and stuff. We also offer free shipping, at least within the United States, so that if they just don't want to worry about it. It's like I was excited. Like I had to go buy the labels, the lithium ion and stuff, is like, and fill it out, and it was like, man, this feels like something legitimate, but it's still just Tim doing it. So I don't know how much credibility.
So what? So is there a website that people can go to like check all these dates?
So ethoslabs.space is going to be the best place. We're actually getting ready to push an update here this weekend. This is the first full weekend in December with some of this stuff. Also, anti-siphontraining.com is also, that's the predominant facilitator for the training classes that I do. I will shamelessly plug them as well, because they're fantastic. If you're wanting something other than just space, it's a great place to check out. But yeah, those would be the two places that I would look. Obviously, also social media. As things get scheduled, they're typically scheduled about 3 months out to try to give everybody a little bit of a runway to do that. But also, if this is something that you're interested in, reach out to me. I do private trainings, in person or virtual, or if you want me to just come to your conference and bring some satellites and stuff. I have amassed quite a collection from all over the world, which is cool. I will be bringing them to KernelCon in April. I'm not teaching there, but I am going to be running a satellite lab with various satellites from across the world, including Tempest, that you'll be able to go hands-on and play with and just kind of look at them and do various things.
That's cool. Yeah, I like all the different options. If people are going to reach out to you, do you want that LinkedIn, email? Just go to the Ethos.space website. Yeah.
So the easiest thing to reach out, like LinkedIn, is probably the best. LinkedIn, Twitter, or Blue Sky. It's my username is Roobix, ROOBIXX, on all of them.
I need to add you on Blue Sky. I just set up one right now, so I've been looking.
I've been on Blue Sky very early.
Yeah,
and
I've heard about it for a while.
I literally, if you send me connect with me, go back to the bottom of mine, and you'll see it's like there's just like, oh, I forgot this place existed. See you guys in a few months, and then I'll come back in a few months, because it's like it just was like so dead. I actually got my invite from the CEO.
Oh, wow.
I reached out on Twitter, not realizing that it was the CEO. Somebody's like, hey, yeah, reach out to this person. They might be able to hook you up. So I thought it was like a developer or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, no problem. Here you go. And I looked, and I was like, and then I actually looked at who this person was, and I was like, okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I've been on for quite a while, but it's definitely catching up, and things like that.
Yeah, no, I'm on there now because everyone's going to it. I figured I'd check it out. Why not? And just see. Drop my crazy bullshit on there. That's I can't do that on LinkedIn all the time.
Yeah, it's a respite for me, because it's like, for me, the full crazy hasn't transitioned over there yet, and it will, and stuff. But it's absolutely. But now I'm trying to juggle multiple platforms, and that's
the thing why I've always been hesitant to. I was like, all right, LinkedIn, fine, but I figured I'd try Blue Sky, see what it's all about.
And I can't abandon Twitter or X.
No,
I may not engage with it as much as far as like actively, but it is still right now the best resource for like real-time InfoSec news.
Yes, and that's what I was going to say, is that like there's a list that I have that if something big breaks, I go to my Twitter list, and it's all people are still posting useful stuff on there. So cool. Yep. All right, man. Well, thank you for joining me to discuss Tempest.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
We are going to add this to like Tim's Only too. I need to grab a picture of it and add it to like the Tim's Only page.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? But two Tims don't make a right.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Yeah. Tim, it still makes me mad that somebody actually owns that website.
Yep.